When the property market moves and prices rise rapidly, a lot of investors think now's the time to sell. I want to cash it in. I want to actually make myself feel good for having held a property for all these years. And you know what? There's a framework that I recommend you use if you're going to actually go down this path. I've been reading a lot of questions in property forums of late from owners of investment properties who are saying, should I cash in? Should I take advantage of a hot property market and realise my gains? And I guess I've got a couple of things to say to those people. And the first one is, property's a long game. Right? Let's face it, if you actually understand the property market, you will know that prices will rise, they'll fall a bit, they'll rise again, they'll fall a bit. Unless you're buying in a highly risky area, type of property where there's no scarcity and prices don't rise too much. Or they rise very steeply because investors are piling in the market and then they plummet like in mining towns. But most people don't have those sorts of properties in their investment portfolio. Most people have pretty poorly performing assets, really. And I guess when prices rise, they start to think, right, time to get out. Now, if you've been thinking that, I might want to cash out and take the gains for my investment property, here's a few things to think about. Why did you buy that property in the first place? Does it still fit the bill? Does it still do what you intended it to do? Did you have a plan? Does this one perform? Or has it been a shit investment all along? Have you secretly known it was a dud and you just didn't really want to admit it? How many property owners think, I know, I didn't make a great decision, but as long as I don't actually sell it, I don't realise that I made a bad decision. It's only when you go to sell and you get less money than you paid for it, or not a huge gain, that you're forced to actually face the consequences of your previous actions. So in a rising market, when everything's rising, you might have an opportunity to get out, sort of make yourself feel better. And let's be honest here, how long would you have continued to bury your head in the sand if there hadn't been a property boom? Now let's think for a moment that you're actually holding a quality asset, and you might be. Do you really think that prices only rise once? That markets only actually have their run once? You know, if you bought a good asset in a good location, it'll come good again at some future point. So it goes back to that original point I made. Did you have a plan when you bought that property, and where are you in that plan? I mean, prices can fall too, don't get me wrong, but if you're thinking that this cycle is the only cycle that's ever going to be forever, then just stop for a moment and realise how ridiculous that sounds. And I can confess here, at the GFC, I thought that, right? And a lot of other people did, including friends of mine. They actually sold, got out of Sydney. They can't afford to get back now. Some people did it immediately when COVID hit too. Exactly the same panic reaction. They may have inadvertently done okay because they were ahead of the tree change curve. However, that doesn't change the point. The point is that these markets, they don't just have one-off runs. So if you're thinking this is a one-off run, things are never going to be this good again, think again. Now get and have a real honest look about the quality of the asset that you've got. I mentioned earlier, did you have a suspicion it's been shit all along? And if you did, well, maybe it is time to bail. But if it's actually a good asset in a good area and it fulfills your long-term objectives and it's not time to sell in terms of your overall plan, then don't do it. Because if you do it, it's a one-way ticket. A, it's expensive to have bought the place in the first place, also expensive to get out, plus then's when you've got to pay tax on the capital gains. And also, what's your plan for the money? What's your next investment strategy? If you ask a sales agent for advice, by the way, you're probably going to get talked into selling. If you ask your property manager for advice, they'll probably talk you out of selling. So you've really got to consider getting holistic advice and being really, really honest with yourself about how good this property is and how well it suits you in your long-term plans. Because let's be honest, are you usually this short-termy and knee-jerky? Come on, property's a long game. If you made a good decision in the first place, stick it out. See it to where it can get you. Now, I'm all for more truth, transparency, and trust in the property game. More honest, good quality advice. If you want to join the conversation, leave a comment.